I sat at the dining room table on Thanksgiving, watching my parents smile at my brother Brandon like he was their golden child. Because he was. My father cleared his throat and announced they were giving Brandon $600,000 as a down payment for a house in an upscale neighborhood. I felt my stomach drop. I asked if they were helping me too. My father looked me dead in the eyes and said I was a failure who wasted money on pipe dreams. My mother nodded in agreement. Brandon smirked across the table. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked out that night. I decided right then I would never call them again. 2 years passed before everything exploded. The first few weeks after Thanksgiving, I kept waiting for my parents to call and apologize. They never did. They had never called much anyway, mostly just to tell me about Brandon's latest accomplishment or promotion. Now the silence was complete, and I realized how little I had actually mattered to them my entire life. My girlfriend Laura had been with me for 3 years. At first, she supported my decision to cut contact. She held me while I processed the rejection, told me my parents were wrong, promised we would build our own life together. But as the weeks turned into months, something shifted in her. I worked as a project manager for a mid-sized construction firm in the suburbs, pulling in $75,000 a year. It was decent money, enough to live on, but I also had student loans from my engineering degree. $43,000 in debt that I chipped away at every month. Laura knew all this. She knew my plan too. For years, I had been saving money and learning everything I could about custom home building. I spent weekends volunteering on construction sites, learning framing and electrical work and plumbing. I took night classes in project management and real estate development. My dream was to buy land, build spec houses, and eventually start my own construction company. It was a real plan, not a pipe dream like my father claimed. But Laura started comparing me to Brandon. She would scroll through his social media and show me pictures. Brandon had just gotten married to a woman named Stephanie, and I had not been invited to the wedding. They bought a 4,000-square-foot house in one of those planned communities where every lawn looks perfect and every house costs $500,000. Laura would stare at those photos for hours. "Your brother has a house now," she said one night while we ate takeout in my small apartment. "What do we have?" I tried to explain that Brandon's success was built on our parents' money, not his own work. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep, making good commission. Sure, but without that $600,000 gift, he would be renting just like us. I was building something real, something that would be mine. She did not want to hear it. Her parents started asking questions too. Why was I not more established? Why did I not ask my family for help? What was wrong with me that my own parents did not believe in me enough to invest? That last question haunted me during sleepless nights. I kept asking myself the same thing. 4 months after I walked out on Thanksgiving, Laura delivered the crushing blow. She sat me down in my living room, her bags already packed, and told me she was leaving. Her words are burned into my memory. "I cannot build a future with someone whose own family does not believe in him," she said, not even looking at me. "Maybe they are right about you, Cordell. Maybe you are chasing something that will never happen." She walked out, and I sat alone in that apartment for hours, staring at the wall. The woman I thought I would marry had chosen my parents' opinion over 3 years of knowing me. Everyone I loved had decided I was not worth the investment. But here is what happened in that dark moment. Instead of breaking me completely, something hardened inside me. I refused to crawl back to my parents and prove them right. I refused to let Laura's betrayal stop me. If no one believed in me, I would believe in myself twice as hard. I moved into an even smaller apartment to save money. The place was 600 square feet with thin walls and a radiator that clanged all night. But the rent was only $850 a month. I started working extra hours, taking on weekend consulting jobs, saying yes to every overtime opportunity. My boss noticed my dedication and gave me bigger projects with better bonuses. Every spare dollar went into my savings account. I researched properties obsessively, looking for emerging areas where land was still affordable but development was coming. I studied zoning laws and market trends. I called real estate agents and asked endless questions. I made myself an expert. The loneliness was crushing some nights. I would lie in that tiny apartment and wonder if I was delusional, Maybe my parents were right. Maybe I was a failure chasing a fantasy. But then I would remember my father's face when he called me worthless, and the anger would fuel me forward. I was going to prove every single one of them wrong. 8 months after cutting contact with my family, I had saved $48,000. It had taken extreme discipline. I ate cheap meals, never went out, drove a 15-year-old sedan that burned oil. Every dollar had a purpose. My coworkers thought I was crazy, living like a monk in my 20s, but I did not care what they thought anymore. Then I found it. 15 acres of raw land 90 minutes outside the city, in an area that was just starting to develop. A new highway was being planned nearby, and the county had approved rezoning for residential development. Property values were climbing fast. Comparable parcels were selling for $15,000 to $20,000 per acre. The seller was asking $170,000 for all 15 acres. It was at the very top of my budget, but I could make it work with a land loan. I drove out there on a Saturday morning and walked every inch of that property. Rolling hills, mature trees, a small creek running through the back section. It was perfect. I put in an offer that same day, used my $48,000 as a down payment, and got a land loan for the rest. The bank approved me based on my steady income and good credit score. 2 weeks later, the property was mine. Standing on that land for the first time as the legal owner, I felt something I had not felt in months. Hope. This was real. This was happening. I was not a failure. I was a man building his future with his own 2 hands. I spent every weekend out there, clearing brush and planning where the house would sit. I camped on the property, cooking over a fire, and sleeping in my truck bed under the stars. It was the freest I had ever felt in my life. No one telling me I was not good enough. No one's expectations to live up to. Just me and the land and the work. But I could not build the house alone. I needed help with the foundation, framing, and roofing. The technical stuff that required crews and equipment. I asked around and got a recommendation for a contractor named Gary. He had built several houses in the area, had good reviews online, and his price seemed fair. Gary came out to walk the property with me. He was in his 50s, friendly, seemed to know his stuff. He quoted me $95,000 for the foundation, framing, and roofing. That would get the house to a point where I could finish the interior work myself, saving a fortune in labor costs. I took out a construction loan. The bank was willing to lend me the money based on the property value and comparable sales in the area. Houses were selling for $400,000 to $450,000 once completed. The numbers made sense. I would be all in for around $300,000, could sell for $450,000, walk away with $150,000 in profit. Then I would do it again. And again. I paid Gary $45,000 up front. That covered materials and the first phase of work. He promised to start within a week. And he did. I drove out there after work and saw the foundation stakes going in, equipment on site, materials being delivered. For 3 weeks, everything moved forward. The foundation was poured, concrete curing, lumber stacks waiting for framing to begin. Then Gary stopped showing up. I called him on Tuesday, no answer. Wednesday, straight to voicemail. Thursday, I took a half day off work and drove to the property. The site was abandoned. No workers, no equipment, and worse, most of the lumber was gone. Thousands of dollars worth of materials just vanished. I called Gary 20 times that day. Nothing. I drove to the address listed on his business license. It was a UPS store mailbox. I called other clients, whose reviews I had read. 2 of them answered, and both told me the same story. Gary had taken their deposit money and disappeared. They were trying to take legal action, but Gary was gone. No one could find him. I sat in my truck on that empty property and felt my entire world collapse. I had just lost $45,000. Money I would never get back. The construction loan was in my name, and the bank would start demanding progress or payment. I had raw land, a partial foundation, and no way to move forward. That night, I looked up bankruptcy lawyers. I was 28 years old and about to lose everything. The bank sent letters demanding updates on construction progress. I tried to explain what happened, but they did not care. They wanted their money or they wanted results. I had neither. For the first time since Thanksgiving, I thought about calling my parents. Maybe they would help. Maybe they would see I had tried and failed and take pity on me. But then I remembered my father's words. Failure. Pipe dreams. I could not give him the satisfaction of being right. Even if it meant losing everything, I would not crawl back. I worked 16-hour days at my regular job, desperately trying to make the loan payments. I stopped eating out entirely. Lived on rice and beans and eggs. Lost 20 pounds in 6 weeks. Looked hollow and exhausted. My boss asked if I was okay, and I lied and said I was fine. I was not fine. I was drowning, and there was no one to pull me out. I was 3 months into the nightmare when Derek called me. Derek had been my best friend since college, one of the few people who knew about my situation. We had lost touch after graduation when he moved across the state to work in real estate investment, but he had heard through mutual friends that I was struggling. "I want to help," he said over the phone. "I have been following what you are doing, and I think your plan is solid. You just got unlucky with a bad contractor." Derek proposed a partnership. He would invest $75,000 to finish the house, enough to hire a new contractor and complete the build. In return, we would split the profits 50-50 when we sold. It was more than fair. It was a lifeline. I was desperate enough to say yes immediately, but I made myself think it through. I had Derek send over partnership papers drafted by his lawyer. Everything looked legitimate. Equal ownership. Equal decision-making. Clear terms for the sale and profit distribution. I signed. And Derek wired the money into our joint construction account. We hired a new contractor together. This time, I did extreme due diligence. Called every single reference. Checked license status with the state. Verified insurance. Visited other job sites. The new contractor, a guy named Paul, checked out completely. He had been building houses for 20 years, never a complaint, always on time and on budget. Paul got to work. And this time everything moved forward like it should. Foundation completed, framing went up. Roof installed. Windows and doors. Electrical and plumbing. Drywall. And insulation. I was out there every weekend, helping where I could, watching my dream literally take shape in wood and nails. The house was beautiful. Modern design with clean lines, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. Open concept living area with vaulted ceilings. Big windows that let in natural light, the kind of house young families would love. And the location was getting better every day. The highway construction had been officially announced. And property values in the area were jumping fast. Comparable homes were now selling for $450,000 to $500,000. My house, sitting on 15 acres, could easily fetch $520,000. After paying off both loans and construction costs, Derek and I would each walk away with around $90,000 in profit. For me, that was life-changing money. It would let me buy my next property and keep the momentum going. After 4 months of construction, the house was nearly complete. Just finishing touches left. I felt hope again for the first time in a year. I had survived the worst betrayal, fought through the darkest period, and come out the other side. I was going to make it. Then Derek asked me to meet him for coffee. He sounded tense on the phone, and I knew immediately something was wrong. We met at a diner halfway between our cities, and Derek could not look me in the eyes. "I need to tell you something," he said, hands shaking around his coffee cup. I thought I was helping, but I think I messed up. My stomach dropped. "What did you do?" Derek confessed that 3 weeks earlier, he had contacted my parents and Brandon. He said he thought it would be good for me to reconcile with my family, and what better way than through a successful business venture. He pitched them on investing in the project together, framed it as a family reconciliation opportunity. I felt my blood turn to ice. "You contacted my family? After everything I told you?" Derek kept talking, words spilling out in a guilty rush. My father and Brandon told him they would sue to block the sale of the property. They claimed I was mentally unstable and making bad business decisions. They threatened to tie everything up in litigation for years, make it impossible to sell. Derek panicked. He offered them a deal. If they invested another $50,000, they could have his 50% share of the partnership. Brandon agreed immediately and wired the money yesterday. The papers were signed and filed. It was legal and binding. I thought you would be happy, Derek said weakly. Your family investing in you, believing in you. I could not speak, could not breathe. My best friend had just handed control of my project to the people who had destroyed me. Brandon now owned 50% of my property, my house, my dream, and Brandon hated me. I left the diner without another word, drove back to the property and sat there for hours, staring at the house I had built. A house I no longer fully owned. Brandon called me that night. His voice was smug, satisfied, like a cat that had caught a mouse. Looks like we are partners now, little brother. 50-50. I have just as much say as you do about when and how we sell. I tried to reason with him. Explained that I needed to sell soon, that my loan payments were crushing me, that we had good offers coming in. Brandon laughed. I am not in any rush, he said. I think we should wait. Let the market rise more. Maybe 2 years. You can handle the loan payments, right? You are not a failure, are you? He knew exactly what he was doing, knew I was barely surviving, knew I needed to sell now, and he was going to bleed me dry, watch me fail, prove our parents right about me. Every decision now required Brandon's approval. Buyers came through with good offers. $490,000, $510,000. Strong offers that would let us both profit nicely. Brandon rejected every single one. Said he was waiting for the perfect price. But I knew the truth. He was waiting for me to collapse. I stopped sleeping. The stress was eating me alive. I was working myself to exhaustion just to make the loan payments every month, and Brandon was playing games with my life. There was no way out. He owned half, and the partnership papers gave him equal say. I was trapped. 3 months crawled by with Brandon blocking every opportunity to sell. I brought him 7 different buyers, all with legitimate offers, all ready to close quickly. He turned them all down with barely a reason, just said no and hung up. The loan payments were destroying me. I had stopped contributing to my retirement account. Stopped everything, except keeping my head above water. I was working 70-hour weeks and still falling behind. Then Brandon showed up at the property with our parents. It was the first time I had seen them in almost 2 years. My father looked the same, stern and judgmental. My mother stood beside him, her face cold. They walked around the house like they owned it, inspecting my work, and I saw nothing but disappointment in their eyes. Surprised you didn't screw this up completely, my father said, running his hand along the kitchen counter. Must be Brandon's influence keeping things on track. My mother nodded. Brandon had to step in to save you, Cordell. Like always, Brandon stood there smiling, playing the magnanimous older brother. We are family, he said loudly. I am here to help my little brother succeed. I tried to stay calm. Tried to reason with them about selling, splitting the profits, moving forward. I explained my financial situation. Though it killed my pride to admit I was struggling. I thought maybe if they understood, they would be reasonable. Then, a car pulled up. A man in an expensive suit got out, carrying a briefcase. Brandon introduced him as his lawyer, a guy named Richard Thornton. My heart started pounding. Why did Brandon bring a lawyer to my property? Richard opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. County code violation notices. 6 of them. All filed anonymously within the past week. All against my property. The first notice claimed the electrical work did not meet code standards. The second said the septic system was not permitted properly. The third alleged property line encroachment with the driveway. 3 more cited various minor issues with framing and insulation. These are serious violations, Richard said in a practiced voice. Each one carries significant fines. The county could issue a stop work order, prevent any sale until they are all resolved. That could take months, maybe years if you fight it in court. I grabbed the papers, reading through them with shaking hands. The electrical work had been inspected and approved by the county. I had the certificate. The septic permit was filed properly. I had all the documentation. The property line survey was done by a licensed surveyor and showed no encroachment. These violations were garbage. False claims designed to create problems. You filed these, I said to Brandon. You made anonymous complaints to jam me up. Brandon shrugged, not even denying it. Citizens have a right to report code concerns. If everything is up to standard, you have nothing to worry about. Just get it all inspected again. Provide the documentation. Pay for the reviews. Should only cost you, what, $10,000 or $15,000? Plus the time. Richard pulled out another document. Mr. Brandon has authorized me to make you an offer. He will buy out your 50% share of the property for $25,000. He will handle all the code violations, all the legal issues, all the costs. You walk away clean. No more loan payments. No more stress. $25,000. For a property worth over $500,000. For a partnership that should net me $90,000 in profit. They were trying to rob me blind. If you refuse, Richard continued, Mr. Brandon is prepared to fight every violation through the county appeals process. He has the resources for extended litigation. Do you? My father stepped forward. Take the deal. Cordell. You are in over your head. You always have been. This is your chance to walk away before you lose everything. My mother added, We are trying to help you. Why do you always have to be so stubborn? I looked at the three of them, standing in the house I had built, trying to steal it from me, trying to prove I was a failure, trying to break me completely. Brandon's smile was the worst part. He was enjoying this, enjoying watching me squirm. No, I said. I am not selling to you. Not for $25,000. Not for anything. This is my property. And you are not taking it from me. Brandon's smile widened. Okay. See you in court, little brother. They left. And I stood alone in that beautiful house, surrounded by violations. I would have to fight with money I did not have. The bank sent me a letter that same week. They were accelerating the loan, demanding full payment in 30 days, or they would begin foreclosure proceedings. I called the bank to find out why. The loan officer was apologetic but firm. They had received information that there were significant code violations on the property, that the build might not be compliant, that there were legal issues clouding the title. They could not carry a loan on a non-compliant property. Brandon. He had been feeding them lies, poison, anything to undermine me. He wanted me to lose this property. Wanted me to fail so spectacularly that our parents' judgment of me would be confirmed forever. That night, I sat alone in my tiny apartment and researched bankruptcy lawyers. I was about to lose everything. The property would go into foreclosure, my credit would be destroyed, and I would prove everyone right. I was a failure, just like they always said. I hired a lawyer I could barely afford. His name was Marcus Chen, and his retainer was $5,000. That was the last of my savings, money I had been holding for emergencies. This qualified. Marcus reviewed all the code violation notices and immediately saw through them. These are harassment filings, he said, flipping through the papers. Someone is trying to jam you up, but we can fight them. It will take time and documentation, but we can win. We started with the electrical inspection. I had kept every record, every permit, every inspection certificate. Marcus brought it all to the county inspector, who reviewed everything and confirmed the electrical work was perfect. Exceeded code standards. The violation was dismissed within 2 days. The inspector actually apologized for the error. The septic permit was next. The notice claimed a missing signature on the permit application. Marcus tracked down the original paperwork and found that a county clerk had failed to transfer a signature from one form to another. Administrative error, nothing to do with the actual septic system. The clerk fixed it in 1 day, and that violation disappeared. The property line encroachment took longer. We had to hire a new surveyor to come out and verify the original survey. Cost me $1,200 I did not have, went on my credit card. But the new survey confirmed what I already knew. The driveway was entirely on my property, no encroachment at all. The original surveyor's notes had been misread, probably deliberately by whoever filed the complaint. Within 6 weeks, all 6 violations were cleared, every single one dismissed. I had documentation from the county showing the property was completely compliant, up to code in every way. I should have felt relieved, but the damage was already done. The legal fees had cost me $7,000 total. I was behind on my loan payments because I had spent everything fighting the violations. The bank had already started foreclosure proceedings, and even though the violations were cleared, they were not backing down. Brandon had poisoned the well too thoroughly. Marcus told me we could fight the foreclosure in court, argue that the bank acted prematurely based on false information, but that would cost another $10,000 in legal fees and take months. I did not have the money or the time. The bank wanted their money now. I drove out to the property on a Friday night, thinking it might be the last time I went there as the owner. Sat in my truck in the driveway, looking at the house I had built. All that work, all that sacrifice, all that believing in myself when no one else would, and it was about to be taken from me. I decided to drive past Brandon's house on the way home. I do not know why. Maybe I wanted to see what I had lost everything for. What my parents had chosen over me. His neighborhood was one of those perfect suburban developments where every house looks like it costs a fortune. Big lawns, nice cars, the whole American dream package. But when I pulled up to Brandon's address, I saw something that stopped my heart. A bright orange foreclosure notice taped to his front door. I sat in my truck, staring at that notice, not understanding. Brandon's house was in foreclosure? That made no sense. He had $600,000 from our parents. He should own his house outright or be close to it. I took a photo of the notice with my phone. Got out and looked closer. The notice said the house was 3 months into foreclosure proceedings. 3 months. That meant Brandon had been missing payments for at least 6 months before the bank filed. I went home and started digging through public records online. The county property records were all public. I found Brandon's house and pulled up every document filed against it. Mortgage records, line, court document. The truth was devastating. Brandon had used the $600,000 from our parents as a down payment, but he had also taken out a $200,000 mortgage for the rest of the purchase price plus renovations. Monthly payments of nearly $3,000, and he had not made a payment in 8 months. I dug deeper, searching for more information. Found the county court records and saw a divorce filing from 8 months ago. Brandon's wife Stephanie had filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and financial deception. The divorce was finalized 4 months ago. Why would Brandon be missing mortgage payments with a $600,000 down payment and a good job? I searched for his employment information. Found an article in a pharmaceutical industry news site from 14 months ago. Brandon had been fired from his job at a major pharmaceutical company for falsifying expense reports. The article did not name him directly, but it referenced his company and the department, and the timeline matched. Brandon had been unemployed for over a year. His wife had left him. His house was in foreclosure, and he had been hiding all of it from everyone, pretending his life was perfect. Then I found the real bomb. Court documents showing that my parents were suing Brandon. I pulled up the case file and read through the complaint. My parents had given Brandon power of attorney over some of their investment accounts a year ago, trusting him to help manage their retirement savings. Over the course of 6 months, Brandon had withdrawn $150,000 from their retirement accounts. The complaint alleged he forged their signatures on withdrawal forms, transferred money into his own accounts, and used it to cover his mortgage payments and living expenses. When my parents discovered the theft 2 months ago, they filed both a civil lawsuit and a criminal complaint. Brandon was facing felony charges for elder financial abuse. My parents' retirement fund was nearly wiped out. They had spent their entire lives saving, and their golden child had stolen it from them. According to the court documents, they were at risk of losing their own house because they could no longer afford the payments. I sat there reading these documents until 3 in the morning, my mind reeling. Brandon's entire play against me was desperation. He was drowning financially, facing criminal charges, about to lose everything. He thought if he could steal my property and sell it, he could cover his debts and buy his way out of the hole he had dug. My phone rang, startling me in the silent apartment. Unknown number, but I answered it. It was my mother. Cordell? Her voice was shaking, crying. Cordell, please. I know we do not deserve to ask you for anything, but we need help. Your brother has ruined us. We have nothing. Please. I listened to her cry, heard the desperation that I had felt for months. The fear of losing everything. The knowledge that the people you trusted had destroyed you. Why are you calling me? I asked quietly. Because you are all we have left, she said. Your father and I are going to lose our house. Brandon stole our retirement. We have no one else to turn to. I thought about all the times I had needed them, and they were not there. All the times they chose Brandon over me. All the times they called me a failure while praising him. The symmetry was almost poetic. I am sorry for what Brandon did to you, I said. But I cannot help you. I am about to lose everything too. And it is partly because of you. Because you gave Brandon control of my property, and he has been using it to destroy me. We did not know, my mother sobbed. We thought he was helping you. He told us you were unstable, that he was saving you from yourself. And you believed him, like you always do. I hung up without saying goodbye. Turned off my phone and sat in the darkness. My parents were broke. Brandon was a criminal. And I was still about to lose my property. Knowing the truth did not save me. It just meant we were all going down together. But then I looked at the documents again. All this evidence, all these court filings. All of Brandon's lies exposed in legal black and white. And I realized I had ammunition now. I had proof that Brandon was a fraud, that the money he invested in our partnership came from criminal activity, that he had no legitimate claim to my property. I called Marcus at 7 in the morning, woke him up. I need you to file an emergency motion in court. I have evidence that my partner committed fraud, that he invested money stolen from his own parents, that his entire claim to the property is based on criminal activity. Marcus was awake now, interested. Send me everything you have. If what you are saying is true, we can get him removed from the partnership entirely. I sent him every document, every court filing, every piece of evidence I had found, and then I waited. Marcus moved fast. Within 3 days, he had filed an emergency motion with the county court, demanding that Brandon be removed as a partner in the property due to fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. The motion cited Brandon's criminal investigation, his foreclosure, his theft from our parents, and argued that he had never invested legitimate funds. The judge ordered a temporary freeze on the property. Neither of us could sell until a hearing in 2 weeks. For me, that was actually good news. The freeze stopped the foreclosure clock. The bank had to wait until the court sorted out the ownership issues. Marcus advised me to confront Brandon directly before the hearing. Bring the evidence, bring the lawyer, make it clear that I knew everything. Maybe Brandon would sign over his share rather than fight a losing battle in court. We drove to Brandon's house, which he was still living in despite the foreclosure. Marcus knocked on the door, and Brandon answered looking worse than I had ever seen him. Unshaven, wearing sweatpants in the middle of the day, eyes bloodshot. We need to talk, I said, pushing past him into the house. The inside was a mess, pizza boxes and beer bottles everywhere. Furniture that looked expensive, but was clearly not being maintained. This was not the life of a successful pharmaceutical rep. This was the life of a man who had lost everything and was barely hanging on. I know everything, I said, pulling out my folder of documents. The foreclosure, the divorce, you getting fired, you stealing from Mom and Dad. All of it. Brandon's face went white, then red, then his whole expression twisted with rage. You have been spying on me? Going through my personal business? It is all public record. Court documents. Anyone can access them. I just bothered to look. Marcus stepped forward. Mr. Brandon, my client has substantial evidence that your investment in the property came from funds illegally obtained from your parents. That makes your partnership claim fraudulent. The court will side with Mr. Cordell. Brandon started laughing, a harsh, bitter sound. Of course you would do this. You have always been jealous of me. Mom and Dad always loved me more. And you could never handle it. They gave you $600,000, I said. And you blew it. You lost your job, your wife, your house. You stole from your own parents and destroyed their retirement. And then you came after me because you thought you could steal what I built. You didn't build anything, Brandon screamed. You are a failure. Everyone knows it. Mom and Dad know it. Laura knew it. That is why she left you. The mask was completely off now. All the fake concern. All the pretend brotherly love. This was who Brandon really was. A desperate, angry man who needed someone to be beneath him so he could feel superior. Sign over your share, I said calmly. Walk away from the partnership, or I will make sure the prosecutor knows about every dollar you stole, every lie you told, every fraud you committed. I have documentation of everything. Marcus pulled out the papers. This is a transfer agreement. You sign over your share of the partnership to Mr. Cordell for $1. You release all claims to the property. You sign a statement admitting what you did, and we will not pursue additional civil action against you. Brandon looked at the papers, then at me, then back at the papers. You are blackmailing me. I am giving you a choice, I said. Sign, or fight me in court and lose. The judge will see all the same evidence I have. The outcome is not in question. You will lose the case, and you will still be facing criminal charges from Mom and Dad. This way, you get out clean on the property at least. Brandon's hands were shaking. I could see him calculating, trying to find an angle, a way out, but there was not one. He was trapped, and he knew it. Just as he reached for a pen, we heard sirens outside. A sheriff's car pulled up in front of the house. 2 deputies got out and walked to the door. Brandon Miller? One of them asked. Brandon's face went gray. Yes? You are under arrest for financial exploitation of an elderly person. You have the right to remain silent. They read him his Miranda rights while putting him in handcuffs. Brandon looked at me with pure hatred as they led him past, spitting words about how this was all my fault, how I had always ruined everything for him. I watched them put him in the back of the car and drive away. Marcus stood next to me. Quiet. Your parents pressed charges, Marcus said. They must have given the prosecutor everything they had. 2 days later, I got a call from Brandon. He was calling from jail, voice small and broken, nothing like the arrogant brother who had tried to destroy me. Please, he said. Please drop the civil suit. I will sign whatever you want. Just drop the suit. Marcus drew up the papers that same day. Transfer agreement giving me full ownership of the property for $1. Release of all claims. A signed statement from Brandon, admitting he had used stolen money to invest, admitting he filed false code violations, admitting he tried to force me out. Brandon signed everything from jail. The judge approved the transfer within a week. I owned 100% of my property again. But I was still broke. The legal fees had cost me everything. I was behind on loan payments, behind on my personal bills, maxed out on credit cards. The bank still wanted their money, and I did not have it. The foreclosure freeze was lifted, and they started proceedings again. I had won the battle against Brandon, but I was about to lose the war anyway. 30 days until the bank took my property. Then my phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered because at this point I had nothing left to lose. Is this Cordell Miller? A man's voice asked. Yes. My name is Robert Hartley. I am a commercial developer. I have been watching your property for several months, following the situation through the court records. I would like to make you an offer. I met Hartley at a coffee shop the next day. He was in his 60s, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. Drove a pickup truck. Not what I expected from a commercial developer. I have been buying land in your area for 2 years, he said, building luxury subdivisions. The highway is coming. Property values are going to triple in the next 5 years. Your 15 acres is a key parcel I need to make my next project work. He slid a paper across the table. An offer letter. $675,000 cash for the land and house. Or, if I preferred, a partnership where I kept 10% ownership in the subdivision he would build. That could be worth millions long term. I stared at the number. $675,000. After paying off all my loans and legal fees, I would walk away with over $200,000 in profit. Why me? I asked. You could have bought this property at foreclosure for less. Hartley smiled. I have been following your case through the public records. Read about your brother trying to steal from you, about you fighting back, about you refusing to quit even when everyone was betting against you. Anyone who fights that hard is someone I want to work with. I need to sell now, I said. I cannot take the partnership offer. I need cash to get out of debt. I understand. Tell you what, make it $700,000 cash, and we close in 1 week. I shook his hand. $700,000. For the property I bought for $170,000, for the dream everyone said would fail, for the house I built when the whole world was against me. The deal closed 8 days later. After paying off the land loan, the construction loan, Marcus's legal fees, and all my other debts, I netted $225,000. More money than I had ever had in my life. More money than my parents had given Brandon, and I had earned every single dollar of it myself. I was 30 years old, debt-free, with $250,000 in the bank, and I had proven every single person who doubted me wrong. 6 months after the sale, I was living a completely different life. I took $50,000 and started my own construction consulting business, contracting with Hartley's company and 2 other developers in the region. I was making good money, building a reputation, creating a future that was entirely mine. The rest of the money I invested carefully, working with a financial advisor to make it grow. I bought a small house for cash, nothing fancy, but it was mine free and clear. No more tiny apartments, no more struggling to make rent. My phone showed 17 missed calls from my parents over those 6 months. I never answered. They left voicemails begging to talk, asking for help, apologizing for everything. I listened to each one once, then deleted it. They were facing bankruptcy, had lost their house, and were living in a small rental apartment. Brandon was awaiting trial, facing 5 to 10 years in prison for elder financial abuse. His marriage was over, his house had been foreclosed, his entire life had collapsed. The golden child had turned out to be made of fool's gold. Then one day, an envelope arrived at my door. Not an email. An actual handwritten letter. 8 pages. Front and back. In my father's careful handwriting. I almost threw it away without reading it. But something made me sit down and open it. It was a confession. Line by line. Page by page. My father laid out everything. He admitted he had always favored Brandon, admitted he was wrong to call me a failure, admitted he had been cruel and unfair my entire life. He wrote that he had been jealous of me because I had reminded him of his own failed dreams, his own regrets about the chances he never took. He apologized for Thanksgiving, for choosing Brandon over me, for doubting me when I needed support. He said he understood if I never spoke to them again, that he deserved to be cut off. He did not ask for money or help. He just asked for forgiveness. At the bottom, my mother had added a note in her shaky handwriting. She echoed everything my father wrote. Said she had been blind and cruel. Said she was proud of what I had built entirely on my own. She said losing their retirement and their house had taught them what really mattered, and they had learned it too late. I read that letter 3 times, sat with it for a week, let the anger and hurt process through me, and then I decided to meet them for coffee. Just coffee, neutral ground, no promises. They looked old when I saw them. My father's hair had gone completely gray. My mother looked thin and tired. They sat across from me in that coffee shop, and neither of them tried to justify or explain. They just apologized again, voices breaking. "We are proud of you," my father said. "We should have told you that every day of your life. Instead, we tore you down. I will regret that until the day I die." My mother reached across the table and held my hand. "You proved us all wrong. You are not a failure. You never were. You are stronger than any of us." They did not ask for money, did not ask me to pay their rent or help them out of bankruptcy. They just wanted a chance to know me again, to have some kind of relationship. I listened to them, really listened, and then I spoke my truth. I told them I was not angry anymore, that carrying anger was like drinking poison and waiting for them to die. I told them I was not going to support them financially, that they needed to rebuild their own lives the way I had rebuilt mine. But I was willing to try having a relationship again. Slowly, with boundaries. Starting fresh. They agreed through tears, thanked me over and over. And when I drove away from that coffee shop, I felt something I had not felt in years. Peace. Being cut off from my family had been the most painful experience of my life. But it had also been the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to discover my own strength, my own worth, my own ability to build something real without anyone's approval or support. I learned that family approval does not define you. Success built on your own terms means everything. The people who doubt you are revealing their own limitations, not yours. Sometimes being called a failure is just the beginning of becoming successful. And I want to say something to anyone out there who has been called a failure by the people who should love them most. Your worth is not determined by who invests in you. It is determined by what you build when everyone bets against you. The greatest victory is not proving them wrong. It is realizing you do not need their validation anymore. Because you have already validated yourself. When I stood on that 15 acres of raw land with $48,000 to my name and a dream everyone said was impossible, I was more successful than Brandon ever was with his $600,000 gift. Because my success was real. It was mine. And nobody could ever take that away from me. Your value is not in what others give you. It is in what you create with your own hands, your own mind, your own determination. When people call you a failure, remember that sometimes the biggest failure is never taking the risk at all. I built a house on raw land with no help, no support, and everyone against me. And that house sold for $700,000. But the real fortune was not the money. It was discovering that I was enough, just me, exactly as I was. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had someone close to you call you a failure or doubt your dreams? How did you respond? Did you give up? Or did you use it as fuel to prove them wrong? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to hear how you fought back. If this story resonated with you, if it gave you hope or made you feel less alone, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story about overcoming the odds, and share this with someone who needs to hear that they are not a failure, no matter what anyone has told them. Your share might be exactly what someone needs today. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you walk away knowing that your worth is not up for debate, and your dreams are not up for approval. Keep building, keep fighting, and keep proving that the only opinion that matters is the one you have of yourself. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.